So, so what we were discussing is about the IMRAD or regarding the structure of a scientific paper. So, in a scientific paper, there are number of important paragraphs, and about which we were discussing in the last class. And one such format that is generally followed is known as IMRAD. So here you can see what is the meaning of the word IMRAD. IMRAD stands for Introduction, Method, Result and Discussion. These are the three major areas which are coming in a paper, in any paper. So we will be seeing one by one. Already we had seen what is the purpose of an introduction. In an introduction, generally we have to answer two important questions. What the paper is about and so what. For example, you are telling about the diversity of birds in an area. So you are going to give an introduction about the bird diversity of Kerala or bird diversity of Kottayam. Then you are going to say that there are certain gaps already in the research. So that I am proposing, I have done a new work which gradually gradually able to complete the already existing gap that is present in the research on the diversity of birds. So that is the section that you will be dealing in the second paragraph. So the first paragraph of the introduction will be explaining what the relevance of about what you are mentioning. And second paragraph or the last part of your introduction should clearly mention what is the significance or what is the relevance or what is the importance of your work. Unless you are not able to clearly mention that your work is important based on the existing data, sometimes the paper may be rejected. Because when you send a paper to a scientific journal, there are different types of scientific journal. There is a journal in our college. Publishing a paper in our college journal is always very easy because it is not strictly peer reviewed. Peer reviewed means it will be reviewed by an expert in the same area. That is the meaning of the peer. For example, your classmates are peer. You are known among each other. You are on the same level. So you are a peer group. So when I am working on the diversity of spiders, if I send a paper to another person who is working in the spider itself, then he is my peer. So that is the somebody who is in the same level. That is the meaning of the word peer, or just like classmates, or the same research group. So generally, any paper should be peer reviewed. But sometimes some journals don't go for that. Based on the level of peer review, the journal has a score. And sometimes you might have heard of that there are certain scores called impact factor. There are journals which have impact factor up to 5. Generally, the impact factor is from 0 to 5. So if a journal has an impact factor 5, it is a highly reputed journal. Very few journals in India has an impact factor of even 1. From not even 1, there are very few journals in India. Majority of the journals with impact factor 2 or 3 are mainly published by European publishers or American publishers or Australian or New Zealand publishers. So based on the credibility of a journal, it has a score. So if you send a paper to a journal without impact factor, sometimes it may be accepted very easily. There may not be any peer review. But if you send the same paper to a journal with an impact factor of 2 or 3, most of the time, or 99.9% of the time, they will reject that paper. If your evidence that you are providing is not sufficient. So that is the main problem. So when you do a research, you have to make sure that the research is important. This research is important because there is a gap. And if you are not able to show that there is a scope for further study, they will not accept your research. Because an important consideration by any research journal is that if it is a duplication, if it is a repetition of already known work, they will not accept. Already somebody has done that work and he has published the relevant result. You are just taking that result and you are saying it in a different way. That is old wine in a new bottle. They will not accept that. So that is one of the important problem. So even when you are doing for a PhD, this problem is there. Unless you have, for example, sometimes I have discovered several new species of spider. Even if it is a new species, most of the time many journals won't accept. They know that it is a new species. The problem is that when we find a new species, that we have to find sufficient number of specimens. For example, if I am going to publish a new species based on only a single specimen, I only got a one female specimen or sometimes two female specimen. If I send it to a journal in India, maybe that will be accepted. If I send the same paper to a journal out in America or Europe, then most probably they will reject it. They will say you only got one specimen. How can you say that this is a new species based only on one specimen? Maybe it is a mutation, or maybe it is just a by variation. So they may not accept it. Sometimes they will ask you, you got only the female specimen? Where is the male? If the male is not provided, they will reject that. And in the use of spider, finding out a male is very difficult. Out of, if you collect 100 specimens, 99 specimens will be female, because the males have a very shorter lifespan. So most of the time, when we collect a spider, 90% of the species specimens will be females. Getting a male specimen is very, very difficult. And regarding my students are here, they are most of the day get only females. So when they send the paper to a good journal, they will not accept. So these are some of the problems that we are facing. So unless you are able to clearly mention that this work is important, this work has a value, many journals will not accept it. So publishing a paper anywhere is easy, but publishing a paper in a journal with an impact factor is not an easy task. It is very difficult. So if you publish a journal in a paper in a journal with a high impact factor, it has its own value. It has now even for when you are applying for a job, like a job in a college, like assistant professor job, it has a different value. That for every paper with impact factor, they will give higher score. So that is the importance of publishing in good journals. So introduction part is generally to mention what is the meaning of your work and what is the significance of your work. Now we come to the methodology. Regarding the methodology, the most important thing is that how your results are generated. So when we are doing a work, so for example, you are studying microorganism, bacteria, or you are studying the diversity of beetles, diversity of insects, diversity of moth or something, or you are studying about the climate of an area, there will be a particular method you have followed. That method when you go through that particular method, you got some result. For example, when you are doing a practical, whether it is in zoology or botany or chemistry, you are following a procedure. How you are conducting a blood cell examination. You are taking this blood first using a syringe, then you are putting a drop of blood on a glass slide. Then you are using another glass slide, you are making a smear. You have done that in the plus 2 classes. Maybe here also you may be doing. So you are following a particular set of methods. And according to that method, you are getting a result. So that if the method is not correct, your result may be faulty. So that is an important thing. So when you are doing a research work, you have to make sure that the methodology or the materials as well as the methods you have adopted is clear, scientifically proven, scientifically accepted. Otherwise, good journals will not accept that. So that is another problem. So it should be sufficiently detailed so that an independent researcher working in the same field could reproduce the result sufficiently to allow for example, you conducted research in Kerala and you are publishing that paper in an international journal. Maybe a person, another same researcher in your area saw that paper and found that this is how that person from India has conducted research, and when he tried to do the research in his own lab or in her own lab, and they are not able to completely reproduce your research, completely able to reproduce your research, sometimes they will accuse you that your methodology is incorrect. So when we mention the methodology, you have to clearly given the important details of your method. And methodology should not be very elaborate also. Most of the time methodology will be limited to one or two paragraph. So in that one or two paragraph, you have to clearly mention all the important things that you have followed in your method, or how you have conducted that research. So that is another important part of the methodology. So methodology should be describing how you have produced your result, and how it should be sufficiently detailed so that another person working in the same field can easily repeat or replicate that research work. Then the third aspect is the result and discussion. And coming to the result and discussion, and we have to make sure that results of a paper should be very short. In any scientific paper, for example, when we are writing a paper in a scientific journal, science-related journal, we have science paper, we have humanities research journals, and we have commerce research journals. But in any science journal, generally, especially if it is in a field like taxonomy, generally they are following a telegraphic language. A telegraphic language means they will not be bothered about grammar and other things. In a minimum words, you have to convey. You don't need to go for an elaborate sentence. What can be said in 5 words, you don't need to take 15 words. So, idea should be presented in minimum number of words. That approach is known as telegraphic style, because when earlier we used to send items using telegram. So for each word they will charge you some amount. So within minimum number of words we are conveying the message. So that is the approach here also, because a scientific journal is a very important publication. They don't have in a lot of paper, because maybe each issue of scientific journal may be only having 100 papers only, 100 pages only, and they may be publishing it only once in a year, sometimes once every 2 months or 3 months only. And most of the journals have minimum 3 issues or 4 issues in a year. So they will not be able to accept all very detailed. For example, a person may send a 10-page paper, and most of the time they will return it and ask you to eliminate unnecessary paragraphs and make it short, so that in a 4 pages or 5 pages you can express your main idea. And it happens to me several times. When I send a paper of 5 pages, they will cut short many paragraphs, and finally it becomes only 2 pages, sometimes 3 pages. So this is the style that is generally followed. So when we are presenting, we have to present the idea in a very short paragraph. It is simply the presentation of result obtained corresponding to the methods described. Based on the methods you have adopted, you are getting a result, and you are presenting that result in such a way that any person can easily understand the main idea of your research work. What is the result you got, and how you have, and what is the method you have, based on what method you have got that result. So these are the styles that you are. For example, most of the time researchers are using some kind of tables to convey the result more accurately. Sometimes certain graphs are used. Sometimes certain pie chart or other things figures are used. Sometimes diagrams are used. And based on these kind of tables, figures, diagrams, we may be able to convey the result in a proper way. So the results are usually combined with a discussion of them. And usually some journals will have a result and discussion as a common section. For some journals, they will ask you, keep the result as a separate paragraph. And after the result on another paragraph, you discuss the importance of your result, or you give an analysis of your result. So, on the last part of your result and discussion section, What you are doing is that you are giving an idea, your opinion. So this is the method that I have followed, and this is the result I have got. And based on the result, I believe that this is a new finding, and there is further scope for more study in this area or in that area. You are conveying that message to the reader, so that a reader who is reading that paper will get some idea that there is still a scope for further study. And sometimes they may be taking clues from that and do their own research in that area. So science is a continuing process. One person has did something, another person is following that from that end, from the point where he has stopped. Another person will be, it's like a relay, just like a continuous relay. So wherever we have stopped, we have to clearly explain why I got this result, what is the meaning of my result, how I am interpreting my result, and what is still more possible, what is left out by me. That aspect should be clearly mentioned in the last part of your paper. So that is the discussion. And finally, sometimes if it is a very elaborate paper, you can also include conclusion. But if it is a small paper, there won't be any conclusion. The result and discussion will be the final part itself. So conclusion is simply a brief summary of the result and discussion, but it is not, it should be more than a summary. After showing each research question posed in the introduction has been addressed, implications of the findings should be implications. What is the meaning of the word implication? Significance, importance. For example, in your research, you got two important findings, and you have to clearly highlight what is the importance of first finding, what is the importance of second finding or second discovery. So this is what is expected in conclusion. So clearly mention what are the importance. And goal here is to provide the most general claims that can be supported by the evidence. So that is the most important. That is to provide most general claims that can be supported by evidence. Because in a research, for everything you are saying, that there should be some evidence. If you are saying that without evidence, that won't be. Science is based on evidence. So that is why science is generally, because if we are saying something and there should be an evidence. If there is no evidence, science will not accept it. So that is the general rule followed in any branch of science. This section should be reader focused, avoiding list of all the things that I or we have. For example, I have done this, I have done that, I believe that this is the correct way, I believe that this should be the next. That kind of approach we should not do. Instead of that, we can focus on the reader. For example, you have published a paper and I am reading it, and when I am reading that, I should feel that this is what is remaining to be done. That aspect should be given importance in the conclusion section. So that is how we are presenting a paper. And so in a scientific paper, these are the four important areas. There should be an introduction, and there should be a methodology, and there should be a result and discussion. These are the three major areas in a scientific paper. Sometimes they will ask you, next year you will have a project work. And in the project work also, you have to make a report of your project work. And there also you are following the same style. But a project report will be containing 30 pages or 40 pages. And you are giving a elaborate, but the basic approach is same. Instead of writing introduction of one paragraph, you have to write an introduction of two paragraphs, or 2 pages or 3 pages. And your methodology may be of 1 page or 2 page. And your result may be containing several pages, maybe 10 pages or 15 pages. And on the last part, you are giving a what is called a discussion. Discussion, you are explaining this is the result I got, and based on the existing knowledge, I believe that this is the way we can interpret this data, and also a conclusion also, just like what I have mentioned that. So that is the approach that you are following in your project report also. So basically, this IMRAD approach is a internationally accepted, scientifically accepted style of presenting your research data. Now we belong to another small section, that is a dissertation. What is a dissertation? Is simply a technical document used to document and set forth proof of one thesis. For example, your project dissertation. Next year you will be doing a project work, and finally you are submitting a bound copy of your project report. That is a dissertation. So in your dissertation, these are the things that you have done. In your dissertation, you are clearly explaining what you have done, what are the results you have obtained, and what is your analysis of your result, and what is your conclusion about your research work. So that is the aspect that is. So it is a technical audience. It is intended for technical audience. You are doing a research work in zoology, and if another person from chemistry or from economics is reading that project report, he may not be able to understand anything. Why? Because most of the time you are using many words which are only known to a zoologist. So it is a purely technical document. So that is another aspect of a dissertation. Now dissertation must be clear and complete. That is, for example, in a paper, you are giving a highly condensed or a summary of your research. It may be only 4 pages. Most of the time, a research paper may be 4 pages or 5 pages. But if you are in your dissertation, you are giving elaborate account of your finding. For every evidence, you are giving clear support with adequate number of images, adequate number of tables, adequate number of graphs. Whatever supporting evidence you have to produce in that dissertation. So usually dissertation will be a 100-page book. Sometimes, for example, PhD thesis, that is a dissertation. MPhil thesis, that is a dissertation. Your BSc thesis, that's a dissertation. So dissertation means actually a project report. So it should be clear, complete, and but not necessarily exhaustively comprehensive. That is too much unnecessary information you should not mention. For example, you are writing a project report next year. You have done a work on crabs of India, crabs of Kerala coast. Now, sometimes what students are doing, they will go to Google and try to get as much information from Google and make a detailed introduction. Then it is going through a play. You know what is a plagiarism checker? There are softwares called plagiarism checker. Now, in a software plagiarism checker, if you taken some data from Google, and this plagiarism checker will immediately show what are the lines you have taken from internet, and they will also show you from which website you have taken. So that kind of softwares are available now. And for your BSc thesis project, you don't need to worry about that. But for an MSc thesis, UGC is already make it mandatory, but our university has still to make it mandatory so that at least the PG students are so far safe. Otherwise, you cannot simply copy anything from the internet. This is what is generally done by the students, but that kind of approach is unacceptable. Sometimes when our students are going to foreign university, they also do the same thing, and the next time itself they will be caught because there are softwares available, and these softwares will immediately show you from where what is your sentence and what are the sentences you have taken from others. So that is not acceptable. So dissertation should be, so there is no need to say unnecessarily detailed information. It should be sufficiently detailed without giving for unnecessary. What can be avoided, what can be removed should be removed. Only those which are significant should be clearly mentioned in that. So today I am stopping here.